It's the NBA Wednesday recap show, and we have 10 games in the NBA to dive into and look at all things fantasy basketball. What can we learn? And are there any moves that we need to make? Let's go!
Jordan open. Chicago with the lead. Bryant to Shaq.
Not a game. We talking about practice.
LeBron James with no regard for human life. Anything's possible.
Back out to Allen. His three-pointer. Bang! Curry for three. Wow! Unbelievable. Making it rain in New York. We the North are now we the champions.
Not the destination, it's the journey. Mamba out.
G'day and welcome to the Ball Boys Fantasy Basketball Podcast. I'm your host, Mitch Casey, and you can find me on Twitter at Ball Boys Fantasy. And today we are recapping the 10 games that were on the Wednesday, the 20th of December in the NBA, getting up close to Christmas now, and we're going to go through all 10 games today. I have recently done a buy low show, which you can check out as the most recent podcast or video over on YouTube. I haven't yet recorded the sell high show, which I will be recording soon and dropping probably over the weekend sometime, and then also a preview show for next week, and then hopefully that can kind of cover a little bit of the Christmas period where I will won't be recording maybe quite as much or be quite as active on social media. So still look out for the Sell High show, which is coming later on this week, and also the week 10 preview show, which will come on the weekend, previewing the week of Christmas in the NBA. But today, we're going to get stuck into it. I am, just for transparency, recording this podcast as the final game of the day is still being played. It didn't look particularly close when I left it at three-quarter time, the Celtics versus the Kings, and at the moment, the Celtics are up 23. So I don't think from this point there's too much to be learned for that game. So, while we are here, let's get stuck into it straight away. We're going to start over with the Charlotte Hornets versus the Indiana Pacers, and the Pacers win fairly comfortable after being close in the first half. In the third quarter, they put the pedal down to the metal and got away very quickly. But Terry Rozier continues to play really, really well. He had 25 points, 9 rebounds, 7 assists, and a steal. The efficiency is coming down, so he shot poorly from the field, only 2 of 10 from the three-point line, but still perfect from the free throw line, 1 turnover. He has a chance to really smash ADP this season, so I don't think that if you're thinking of selling him high, that the expectation that he returns back to about where you draft him. I think he's going to end up being a decent pick, and he is someone that has previously in the past, obviously. He has put up top 40 numbers before. So he is someone that I would be wanting to at least get a top 40 player back, more likely a top 30 guy. And I think the expectation is that he's more likely sort of a top 50 player from this point, even when LaMelo Ball does come back. But it is not surprising to me to see his efficiency pull back from what he had been doing prior to the last couple of games. So, but the volume is still there. He's pretty good as a low turnover guy if you worry about that, and he can give you some really nice assists, threes, and free throw percentage is good as there as well. So he is looking all right. Still, Brandon Miller is also looking all right, at least while LaMelo Ball is out and there's less of that minutes crunch going on. And he's putting up decent scoring numbers. So he's probably outperformed my expectations so far and is definitely someone you can have rostered. Although I don't think he's going to be super dominant when it comes to defensive stats and assists and things like that. He definitely does at least enough to be on fantasy rosters in category and points leagues. Let's talk about the center here, Nick Richards, who only played the 19 minutes. He had 3 fouls in this game, which might have limited his time a little bit, but they opted to play PJ Washington a fair bit at the center position in today's game. So if we were to say that Nick Richards played 19 minutes and that was going to be his role moving forward, he'd be a drop and he would be someone you have to worry about. I don't think I'm there just yet because the Mark Williams doubtful tag continues to roll through and we have no idea how long he's going to be out. But Nick Richards is not the kind of a guy. He's a good fantasy producer when he gets the minutes, but he's not a good enough NBA player to guarantee that he's going to be out there 28 to 30 minutes a night every game. He just isn't quite that level of player. So if you wanted to move on to have a more longer term add in mind. I don't think it's someone you have to hold on to, but I do think he's going to be better than this, and I expect him to play more than 19 minutes on most nights and give you those rebounds, field goal percentage, and blocks that, typical big man can do, but obviously a disappointing game in this one here. Also, disappointing game for Gordon Hayward, whose volume was down low again, and it's a little bit up and down for Hayward in terms of the usage rate this season, which is a little bit confusing. 11 points. He did it efficiently, 3 of 5 from the field, but like I said, only 5 field goal attempts. He did have the 6 free throw attempts and the 2 turnovers. So his usage, it's a bit up and down. Like he can sometimes go games where he takes like 17 field goal attempts and games where he takes 5, like in this game. So it's a little bit of a weird one. I still think he's a hold for the most part, giving you back end value. And he's still healthy, which is the main thing, which is, probably a recent record for Gordon Hayward, so good on him. Miles Bridges continues to, be okay, but not outstanding. 3 steals in this game is nice. Not terrible from the field, but not super efficient either. 19 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, no blocks, no threes. He's okay. He probably is better when LaMelo Ball is in the team. And PJ Washington, despite playing 26 minutes, which can sometimes be enough for him, he's not really getting it done so far. He's a bit up and down, and we know that about him. 12 points, 4 rebounds, and nothing else. He did have 2 threes. When Mark Williams does come back, I think he will move into that drop territory, and he's not a high upside guy at the moment. So in shallower leagues, you don't have to have PJ Washington. But I think in standard 12s, for the most part, he should be at least on some kind of roster. The rest of this team, there's nothing really to worry about. The minutes are, I was going to say they're down, but not really. Gordon Hayward, 23. I double-checked that one, and I haven't actually had a look at this one. Maybe I should have double-checked this before. But he didn't get injured, did he? Gordon Hayward. Because that would explain the low usage there in this game. He was sick. Okay, so he was questionable going into this game with illness. He ended up playing, so maybe they've just limited his minutes because he was sick heading into the night. So maybe that's an excuse for him. This sort of leads me to think if you were on the edge of dropping him, I would give him a bit longer to let him bounce back, and hopefully he feels a little bit better and his tummy's a bit not as quite grumpy next game, and he can play a bit better. Moving on to the Pacers here, they like I said, just dominated in that second half. Tyrese Halliburton, 19, 3, and 13 with a steal and a block. 3 threes, perfect from the free throw line. Turnovers are up a little bit more recently, and the steals aren't as high this season. I think the pace in which they're playing is affecting his steal numbers. They're obviously not prioritizing defense as much as previous seasons, so I don't think those steals do come back up to previous year's numbers, but you're not really complaining with Tyrese. I think he's going to be a top 4 player for the rest of the season. Because they were sort of really cruising, and I don't think any of the starters play in the final corner, the minutes are down a little bit here, but nothing really to be concerned of. Obviously, we don't have to have Obi Toppin. You can clearly go ahead and drop him. And Bruce Brown, I think if you have something better on your waiver wire, he is someone you can consider dropping for sure. In most cases, I try to hold on to these guys that are pretty comfortably 30-plus a night minute starters, unless they're really, really poor. And Bruce Brown does have some ability. 6, 5, and 6, no defensive stats, but he normally is a guy that can get you some defensive stats, but he has been disappointing so far this season, so he's not a must-hold, I don't think, and if there is someone else better on the waiver wire, he is an okay guy to look at your team and assess, is he my worst player, and if he is, then yes, you can drop him. Just a quick shout-out here to TJ McConnell, who I streamed in on Industry Pickup, and in the first 11 minutes, he had 8 assists, and just about every pass that he made that led to a shot went in, and I was loving watching that. He had a steal, 5 rebounds, perfect 100%, 3 for 3 from the field. He's an excellent streamer when it comes to assists and steals, and this Indiana Pacers game style is just perfect for those point guards to rack up assists, even in limited minutes. Now, he got an extended run in this game. He had the 20 minutes in total, but he probably would have finished closer to sort of 15 or 16 minutes had it been not a blowout, and he came out in that fourth quarter, but he played through to the end there. There's been a few blowouts for the Pacers recently, so a lot of the bench guys are getting maybe a bigger run than they have probably before. So TJ McConnell's ranking actually looks pretty good over the last couple of weeks, but I think there is some outside circumstances. But he is someone that, if you're in a deeper league, 16 teams, as long as he's playing those backup point guard minutes by himself, and they're not giving, and Nembhard is out, then I think you can roll with him. He's an excellent streamer, but I think that some of the minutes are set to come back when the game is close. In terms of the backup center role, we did have Jalen Smith back in this game. He and Isaiah Jackson split it right down the middle with 10 minutes each, meaning that both of them are not really rosterable. I do think that Jalen Smith eventually wins back the majority of those minutes, and Isaiah Jackson basically goes back to being a third stringer. And we don't see too many Obi Toppin minutes at center, which really limits his value. So the Jackson, Smith, and Turner trio took up all 48 minutes at the center position, meaning Obi Toppin only had his 22 minutes, hence why he's a clear drop. And you can, I think, definitely move on from Jackson Smith if you added him for whatever reason. I don't think either of them are rosterable in 12-team points or category leagues. Let's move on to the next game here, the Miami Heat versus the Orlando Magic. We have, the last couple games, had Tyler Hero return. He had a big game here, 28 points, 8 rebounds, 7 assists. No defensive stats, but was super efficient. 4 threes, perfect from the free throw line. Really, really nice line. I think that, look, obviously no Jimmy Butler in this game, so his usage was a little bit higher than you would expect, but he's actually a solid rebounder. He's a better playmaker than I think he gets credit for, and the 35 minutes is super encouraging. I expect more of the playmaking responsibility to go through him than Kyle Lowry, who played just the 17 minutes, 3 points, and 2 assists. You can clearly go ahead and drop Kyle Lowry if he's on your roster. Bam was solid, 18, 7, and 2 with the steals. Solid, but not outstanding. I think he'll be better and improve as he kind of comes back into up to speed. And Jaime Jaquez started at small forward or power forward, whatever you want to call Caleb Martin in this game. 10 points, 3 rebounds, 1 assist, a steal, and a block. He did only shoot 30% from the field, missed all 3 of his threes, and went 4 of 6 from the free throw line. So not the greatest performance. The steal and the block kind of salvaged it a little bit. I think that when we do get Jimmy Butler back, he is going to be someone that we are not having to roster. And I think you don't have to roster him right now. The fact that he is starting and playing 33 minutes is encouraging. So he's not a must drop, but I just don't know how friendly his fantasy game is, especially when some of the better players are out there and they're soaking up a lot of the usage. I don't really see him as this dominant stocks guy or a big assist player or someone who can drain in threes. He's a bit inefficient at times, especially the free throws and things like that. So there's just not enough upside, in my opinion, that you need to sit through poorer games. So if he strings together a few that are down, drop him. Even now, if there is a hot waiver wire pickup, he's not someone I think we have to hold. And Caleb Martin, you can move on from him. Only played the 18 minutes because off the bench they played Haywood Highsmith, 29 minutes. It's really confusing, his minutes. They're up and down all over the shop. So I don't think I'd be jumping onto him, despite a decent game with 15, 6, and 2 with 2 steals and 4 threes. Good game, but I don't think I'd be reacting too strongly in 12 or 14 team leagues. Duncan Robinson, he was a guy that I thought that would hold on to value longer than Jaime Jaquez. It's interesting that he's gone to the bench and Jaquez is now starting. But the one thing I have said about Duncan Robinson is I think he's genuinely improved a lot as a player and added some more strings to his bow because the 6 assists is not an isolated incident for him this season. He's improved as a playmaker, as a pick-and-roll ball handler this season, which I think allows him to continue to play more minutes. And I think that I'm still of the opinion that I would be holding Duncan Robinson ahead of someone like a Jaime Jaquez. But the fact that he did only play 22 minutes and it is off the bench is not as encouraging as I thought it would be, and maybe neither of them are rosterable players when Jimmy Butler does come back. And we're back to Thomas Bryant playing backup minutes, 17 here, and Orlando Robinson getting 1 minute, which is super, super disappointing. Look, he was plus 20, so I guess he did all right in this game, but yeah, I mean, that's just annoying to me. Over onto the Orlando Magic, we did get the return of Wendell Carter Jr. in this game. He played 23 minutes and put up 8, 6, and 1 with no defensive stats. He was efficient, 75% from the field, hit a 3, and missed 1 of his 2 free throws. He's not going to be a guy that changes your world in fantasy basketball, but I do think he's a solid player, and I do think that he does get back up to those high 20s in minutes. And when he does do that, he can be sort of like a top 110-ish kind of center. He is not a guy that's like a 60+% field goal guy, so that affects his ranking. He's more of like a 50 to 55% because he does shoot some threes, and he's not a huge steals and blocks guy, which may affect his ranking a little bit, but he is a great rebounder. He's a solid assist guy for a big man as well. And he can score, 14 to 15 points per game, I think is reasonable to expect when he's up to full minutes. It is interesting to see how they handle this center rotation, though, and if it does actually affect his minutes, because they did play all three in this game. They played Goga Badatse 12 minutes. They also played Mo Wagner 17 minutes and Carter 23. So Carter came in first game back and played the most amount of minutes out of all three centers. Goga went from the starting center to the one that played the least amount of minutes, and I do think that eventually he might be phased completely out of the rotation, and those minutes do go to Wendell Carter Jr., so he gets closer to 30. So if he's around on your waiver wire, Wendell Carter, that is, I would definitely be adding him. Be patient as he kind of ramps up his minutes and things like that. I thought there was a chance he could, come in and play bigger minutes, but he's been out for a long time, so the conditioning's probably pretty shit. And despite it being a hand injury, he might need a little bit of ramp-up time. Jalen Suggs only played the 21 minute. He had his hand in a bit of a cast from his fall. I think it was a couple of games ago. He was efficient, played well, no steals. He had a block. Was a negative 23, so wasn't really getting it done, and some of the reserves were kind of doing better in this game. So I'm thinking they just decided to limit his minutes a little bit in this one. I don't think it's anything to worry about, but we'll keep an eye on it. Paolo was inefficient from the field, 2 of 12, yuck. He missed all his threes, but 8 and 8 with a steal is okay, but you want him to shoot better than that. This is old rookie Paolo. He has been better so far, obviously, this year with the field goal percentage, and I think that's a bit of an anomaly. And the Franz Wagner buy low, I still think is there. He had 2 steals and a block in this game, but still missed all of his threes. He attempted 4 of them. So if he hits like another 1-3 here, his line goes from 5 of 14 to 6 of 14. He goes up to 18 points and adds a 3. It looks better. 2 of 4, and then he starts to really look like a really nice line. So I do think that the 3-point shooting is going to improve and his value is going to rise. So I still think and feel confident that he is a buy low. Cole Anthony, he 25 minutes, 20 points. He's still a must-roster player, definitely. He's been really good this year, actually. His efficiency is much, much improved. He was usually a guy that was really tanking your field goal percentage, and that has gotten a lot better. So shout out to him for improving that, and he is definitely someone who's still must-roster, in my opinion. And there's not really much else to talk about. You can go ahead and drop Wagner, Mo Wagner. You can go ahead and drop Goga Badatse. The minutes are just not going to be enough for them to be worthwhile. Let's talk about the Minnesota Timberwolves losing to the Philadelphia 76ers, and let's start by talking about Jaden McDaniels, who played 37 minutes. He's been in and out of lineups, or in and out of the team for the Minnesota Timberwolves the last little while, but has been back recently. 37 minutes is good. He had a 21 points, 3 rebounds, no assist, had 1 steal and no blocks, hit 2 threes. But shot 8 of 12 from the field, which is obviously great, but it's obviously also unrealistic to expect that moving forward. He can be a 50% guy, so if that's 6 of 12 and 1 of 3, take off 5 points, 16 points, 3 rebounds, and a steal. It's not that exciting. It's okay, and I do think that because it is hard to find these players that play 30 to 35 minutes a night every night, he has a role in category leagues more so as a defensive back-end guy, but you need to also ask yourself, are you better off streaming that position than having him? So he's definitely someone that, because of just the sheer volume of minutes and the safety in his role, he is someone to consider, and it can get you at maybe a steal and a block, like a Patrick Williams type. I view those types of players quite similarly, in my opinion. Maybe McDaniels doesn't quite have a similar ceiling, especially while Levine is out, as a Patrick Williams, but I do view them kind of similarly. He's had a bit of a rough start to this year, and he is a terrible rebounder for a guy his size, which is always frustrating. He doesn't get any assists either, so definitely not a great points league player. More a back-end category league guy that, there's just more safety in his role and minutes. Karl-Anthony Towns, 23, 13, and 2 assists. Solid enough game. No defensive stats, but he did well enough. And Rudy Gobert apparently only averages 20 rebounds when he's coming up against my fantasy team. 8 points, 9 rebounds in 24 minutes. Had 4 fouls in this one, and no blocks. So after, dominating this year. Had a bit of a down night in this game, but obviously I think he'll be fine. And if only I was versing Rudy Gobert this week and not where he averaged 20 rebounds against me and 3 blocks. That would have been nice. Anthony Edwards, 27 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists. He is solid. And the free throws, I'm convinced, are real. I think he is definitely improved in that one there. It hasn't really converted to a huge first-round ranking when it comes to his overall value, but it is good to see him improving an area of weakness that was a part of his game previously. So I think that is a positive sign, especially for his dynasty value moving forward. Where is Anthony Edwards? He's actually the 32nd. Am I sorting that by -1? Yes, he's the 32nd ranked player when it comes to -1. So, pretty disappointing, to be honest, if you draft him in the first round. And the reason he's there is not super clear to me. It's he's not quite scoring as much as we would have thought, and the threes are down. I do think that those things can improve, but he is still getting his 1.3 steals, half a block. Both those are marginally down. There might have just been some other players that have gone ahead of him. The scoring is not as good as I thought it could be so far this year. But yeah, the free throw is 85.5%. It's a little bit surprising that he's ranked, quote unquote, so poorly when he's kind of doing very similar to what I expected him to do, with the maybe slight asterisk there that he's not scoring quite at the elite level. But I think that definitely can improve moving forward. I think he can be closer to he's averaging, just under 25. I think he can get over 26 when things are all said and done. So maybe it is a bit of a buy low still for Anthony Edwards. If I can get him for someone outside the, pick 25, I think I'd do it if someone's glued to those rankings. What else happens in this team? Not too much. Naz Reid played 20 minutes compared to Kyle Anderson's 12, which is interesting. I wonder if that split is going to stick. Nothing I think we need to really action right now, but maybe just something to monitor. And then, nothing else really to discuss for that team. On the 76ers, Joel Embiid, who I think, just checking, is the number 2 overall player when it comes to -1 rankings this season, and number 2 as well on 9cat rankings. Actually, no, sorry, he's the number 1 player when it comes to -1 rankings. He is ahead of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander when it comes to -1 settings. Yeah, that's crazy. And Shai's averaging 2.8 steals per game. Man, he is putting up some big numbers. And I sent a tweet out today that, I retweeted something that I said in August earlier this preseason, that I wouldn't be surprised, or I didn't think that Jokic was the lock for the number 1 pick in most fantasy drafts. Joel Embiid was the guy that I had in mind that I thought could beat him, and so far he obviously is. The fact that he's nearly averaging 6 assists is the biggest surprise to me, actually, so far for the year. He is killing it. He's also nearly averaging 90% from the free throw line on nearly 12 attempts. That is some Shai Gilgeous-Alexander type free throw volume and efficiency, which it's almost a similar kind of jump, because he was hovering around just above that 80 mark where he was a positive, but when it's on that huge volume, if it slips into the negatives, it can really hurt you. But he has just gone, I'm going to never miss free throws really ever again. And he went 17 of 18 from the line this game. So he is, I think, a chance for the rest of the season to be the number 1 player in fantasy basketball, as he has been so far. And it's just dominant. He can't do anything wrong. He is absolutely in cruise control. I don't know if I read out his stat line. 51 points, 12 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals, a block, 17 of 25, 17 of 18 from the free throw line. Big performance. Absolutely huge. And I think he can be the number 1 player moving forward. Tyrese Maxey is rolling as well. 35 points, 5 assists. He had 5 turnovers, which is one of the strengths of his, and the turnover Nazis, I wonder if they're going to come down on him as hard as they are Cade Cunningham. I think it's fine. He obviously hit all 6 of his free throws and was efficient. No steals and blocks, which is what we expect from Tyrese Maxey. Not a big steals guy, although he hasn't proved so far this season. But I see him more as sort of like a 3rd round guy, maybe a 2nd round guy at best, but not the 1st rounder that he started the season as. Tobias Harris sucks even more than I thought. 9 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, and a steal. Maybe he's cooked. I don't know. Embiid and Maxey are doing a lot on this team, and Tobias Harris is kind of taking a bit more of a back seat. And when he's not shooting 60% from the field like he was early in the season, I don't know. The stats aren't really great there. And What's he been doing recently? Is he moving into the droppable zone? I'm not. I would have thought similar to what I said with a Jaden McDaniels is. It's good to have those guys that have a secure role and they're going to play mid-30s in minutes all the time. But he what has he been doing the last 2 weeks? I mean, this is 9 cat. He's been like top 90, but averaging like 10 points, 5.5 rebounds, 2.5 assists. It's just at this stage. I think he can be better. Excuse me, guys. I've been a little bit sniffly today. But yeah, I don't know if I see him as a buy low anymore. I'll put it that way. I don't think he's a drop. As much as I don't like Tobias Harris and how boring he is, I don't know if I view him as a buy low anymore when I nearly did for a little while. It's happening frequently enough now that I just go, yeah, don't know. Don't know if it's going to get that much better than this. I think it'll be better, but not that much. Kelly Oubre started and played 29 minutes, and we should talk about D'Anthony Melton, who went out injured in this game. I don't think it's anything very serious. From what I saw, it was just a bit of a corky hit. Had a knee to the thigh, to the quad, and was pretty sore, I'd imagine, and played the 16 minutes. He might miss 1 or 2 games, but I don't think it's anything dramatic, so don't drop D'Anthony Melton. Kelly Oubre started, played 29 minutes, and wasn't great. He was 50%, but only 6 field goal attempts. I don't think he's a must-roster player. He's more of a streamer to me for points and steals and maybe some threes as well. But it's a bit up and down when it comes to Oubre's production. And shout out to Perth 36 legend Paul Reed, 8 points, 8 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 steals, and a block, 60% from the field and 100% free throws. This is why he was a guy we were all frothing about in the preseason when we thought he had a chance of getting 20 minutes, 24 minutes a night. He did this all in 11 minutes. That is a great line in that time. We just can't trust it every night. So he's always just on the radar that when Embiid misses, we stream him in. We're going to have to bloody hurry this show up, guys, because I'm taking too long. The Utah Jazz, Walker Kessler is back starting again. Don't know why he was coming off the bench, but you know what? John Collins is now coming off the bench. What is this? What is with this team and bringing guys off the bench after injuries? And I don't get it. I mean, 22 minutes, he played decent. 16 points, 5 rebounds, a steal and a block. He was efficient, 2 threes, hit all his free throws. It's a good line, but I don't quite understand it. We hold John Collins and, I don't know, just ride it out. He's been pretty boring-ish, not the greatest pick. I thought he could be a sleeper this season, but I don't really think that anymore. He's just kind of float around that 100 to 120 zone, which is fine, but nothing exciting. Lauri Markkanen is back up and rolling a little bit now. 26 points, 10 rebounds. He hit 3 threes, 7 of 8 from the free throw line. Typically, he had no steals and blocks, but also didn't turn the ball over. That's pretty Lauri Markkanen. And Colin Sexton is a must-have player right now, at least until Keontae George and or Jordan Clarkson are back. He is going to just keep scoring. He's going to hit some threes. He had a block in this game. He actually isn't a super inefficient player. He can score relatively efficiently. He's not like a chucker, and usually can give you decent free throw percentage as well. He only missed 1 of his 4 this game, so I think he is a must roster at least until those guys, at least one of those guys are back, and probably so is Taylor Horton-Tucker. 19 points, 11 assists, and a steal. Didn't murder your percentages, which is always very nice. In fact, was good from the free throw line, 7 of 8. So again, while Keontae George and Jordan Clarkson are out, he is a guy that I think we stream, which might not be much longer, but yeah, if they miss more time, he is definitely someone we stream in and add. We don't need to worry about Kelly Olynyk if you added him for a stream. Despite a steal and 2 blocks and 6 assists, it's all okay. 19 minutes is not, so I'm happy to move on from him, as I am for everyone else in this team. Walker Kessler, 10 and 5 with 2 steals and a block. It's not the greatest line, but the fact is he's playing 30 minutes, and that is more like it. And I think that he is still maybe a buy low, and I still feel pretty confident that he will be much better than this. On to the Cavs. We had a pretty bare bones roster here, and they still managed to get the victory over the Jazz, which maybe says something more about the Jazz. But I want to talk about Sammy Merrill, who for deeper leagues I think is definitely an ad, and wait and see whilst this is going on while Garland is back. While he's out and until he's back. We also had no Donovan Mitchell in this game and obviously no Evan Mobley. So They needed some people to get up shots and score, and it was him, it was LeVert, it was Jarrett Allen, and Max Strus. But Sammy Merrill is available pretty much everywhere. He had 8 3-pointers, and he is a good 3-point shooter. 8 of 14, if that's more like 6 of 14, the line is still pretty solid. The fact that he's getting up 14 3-pointers in a game is more impressive to me than like the line itself. So he's obviously confident, and they're willing to let it fly in this sort of situation when they have players out. So I think he's definitely an add in 14 teams and deeper. And if you need a 3-point guy for the short term, Sam Merrill can be that in 12s because, they need someone to take the shots. And he looks like a legitimately good 3-point shooter. And he can be a 40+% guy. So, like I said, if he goes 6 of 14 from the 3-point line, it turns it into 21, 3, and 2 with a steal and 6 threes. That's still bloody good. So I think that he can be added in specific situations in 12s. And in deeper leagues, I think he can be an add and sort of wait and see how things go when Donovan Mitchell comes back. You might be able to maintain when Mitchell's there. Probably not when Mitchell and Garland are back. But I'd be adding and just sort of seeing how things go because I think he's better than Dean Wade, obviously. I mean, the different positions, but that's clear to me. Okoro, he flashed some things, but yeah, not someone I'm really super keen on outside of like a steals streamer, and didn't have any steals in this one. So yeah, Craig Porter Jr. played 24 minutes, 6, 7, and 6 with 3 blocks. He is solid, poor efficient night. So if he shoots better, this line looks a lot better. He's streamable, but I don't think his value is going to be able to maintain super long term. I think if Donovan Mitchell comes back next game, you can pretty much move on from him. I think he's only really there when Garland and Mitchell are out. And that is all I've got to say on that game. Jarrett Allen, he did all right in this game. 6, 17, 8, and 3 with 2 steals. Efficient, solid. Jarrett Allen, good job. All right, let's move on to Denver Nuggets versus the Toronto Raptors. Jokic, the number 4 ranked player so far this season, had a solid night. 31 points, 15 rebounds, 6 assists, and 2 blocks. Efficient, hit 3 threes. Very, very nice. Good job, Jokic. When I say I didn't think that Jokic was a lock for number 1, I still had him ranked number 1 on my site, on my pre-draft. And if you took him number 1, I don't think it's the wrong decision. I'm just saying that it's hard to be the number 1 guy for multiple years in a row when there are so many great players in the NBA. I've said this before, but there's the top of fantasy, especially like Embiid, Shea, Giannis, Jokic, Luka, Tyrese Halliburton, Anthony Davis. There's like 7 guys who 10 years ago they'd all be number 1 players in fantasy basketball. I feel like the cream at the top of fantasy basketball is probably the best I've ever seen it, to be honest, because there are some really ridiculous stat lines going around. Jokic in -1, he's actually, what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4. He's 6th at the moment because Ja Morant has played 1 game. So, I mean, he's 5th, really. But yeah, obviously he's still bloody good. And don't stress if you drafted him number 1 because I would have done the exact same thing. And I think he's still going to be bloody awesome. Jamal Murray, 20 points, 4 rebounds, 6 assists. I would have loved to get some free throws from him, but 1 steal and 2 blocks, that's really good. Aaron Gordon has, for some people, has been said he's been really disappointing this season. I push back on that. I think he's been pretty solid. He went through a quiet patch a little while there, and this isn't a great game, but I still think that he is a guy that we need to have on our fantasy rosters, especially if you're in a punt threes or a punt free throw percentage in points leagues. I think he's pretty good as well. The defensive stats didn't come here, but he can normally chip in some defensive stats on given nights, and he's had some big rebounds and assist games in the past as well. So I still think that Aaron Gordon is going to be, thereabouts to the top 100 in -1 rankings. And I actually think he's had a pretty good year so far as someone who's had him on their fantasy roster. I've been somewhat happy with my pick with him. Michael Porter Jr. buy low continues. Shot poorly in this one. He will shoot better. His value is all about how he shoots. Didn't have a block here, and he can bring some of those sometimes as well. So continue to send some buy low offers. And KCP, I can never stream the days that he gets steals. I streamed him last game, no steals. I think I've streamed him like 3 or 4 times in injury pickup, and he might have given me 1 steal out of those 4 games. He had 3 in this one, so that's great. That's why you would have him. 2 threes, had a block, had 3 assists, no turnovers. Great. That's cool. He's still not someone you have to have on more than as a streamer. I think that's all we need him for. On to the Raptors. I said this before, and then immediately the half after, he made me look stupid. But I'm worried about Jakob Poeltl. He had 19 minutes in this game, only the 2 fouls. They just seem to want to play smaller more often, with Precious at the center sometimes. Sometimes it's Chris Boucher. And sometimes they just get Gary Trent Jr. in there and play Pascal Siakam as the center as well. So I'm worried about him. In points leagues, I don't think you need to have him. I think he can be dropped. He is on the category league side of things, the 96th ranked player for the season. Now, he's better than that when you take into account punt free throw builds, but it's trending the wrong direction, and I don't like what I'm seeing in terms of just their preference of going small often. Now, prior to this game and the last game, there was a very decent run where he was, nearly getting high 20s in minutes most nights, but it's not the first time that they've done this, and I don't know. They lost this game, so hopefully that de-incentivizes them, and I don't think he's a drop across the board, but have a look at your roster, and especially in a points league, if his average is close-ish to the guys on the waiver wire, I'd be okay dropping him for a streaming position in that kind of a situation, because he's not a guy that's going to come out and drop 30 points on any given night. So I think in a points league, in a 12-team category league, I still think you hold on to him, especially if you are punting threes or free throw percentage. But color me concerned for Jakob Poeltl, and hopefully that's a rocket that he needs to get going, because last time it did work mid-game as well. OG Anunoby, he's also struggling, and I've said before, I don't think he's appeared on any of my buy low shows because I was not very high on him in the preseason. I can't remember if I had him as a bust or not, but he was never a guy that I don't have him anywhere, and never a guy I targeted. He led the league in steals this year, 0 in this game, and is below. And I think that the steals, or the scheme for these Raptors doesn't really promote steals as much as the scheme did last year. And look, he wasn't even inefficient in this game. It's just the fact that he had 9 shot attempts. Usage was very low. He's not getting any bump in assists with Fred VanVleet gone. That's all going to Barnes, Siakam, and Schroeder. So I don't think he's a drop. In a points league, he might be. He definitely might be a drop in points leagues. It's not like the minutes are low either. They played nearly 40 minutes in this game. He's just not involved in the offense as much. He's a better player than he is a fantasy basketball player when the steals aren't there and you're taking into those, -1 rankings involved. So I still think he's a holding category leagues, but I don't think he's a buy low. I think he's going to be a bit of a disappointment this season for fantasy. Scotty Barnes and Pascal Siakam kind of did their thing. We got usage for Scotty Barnes over Siakam today. Can't really pick at most games, but I think for the most part, they've both been pretty good, and Scotty obviously better than that. Very good. But he's slowly ticking back down to where he was ranked, basically, by Yahoo, which I think was 44th in the preseason. It wouldn't surprise me if he ends up relatively close to that by the end of the season. The New York Knicks versus the Brooklyn Nets, Battle of New York, and the Knicks come away with the victory. Now, we had the news today that Mitchie Robinson is expected to be out for the rest of the season. So Isaiah Hartenstein is going to have value for the rest of the season, is basically the takeaway from that. He had 30 minutes in this one here. He's not going to shoot and score a lot because Tibbs doesn't want his centers doing that, but he can do a lot else. 10 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 blocks. He's normally super efficient, only 1 for 3 for today, but he is someone that in a punt point situation is amazing. But even if you're not in a punt points, you definitely absolutely grab him. He is a must roster player everywhere. In a points leagues, I still think he's a must-roster player because those rebounds, assists, blocks can be valuable, and but his upside is not quite as high in a points league. But I do still think in 12-team points leagues, he's a guy you add. But 100% in a category league, he has to be added by someone in your league for fantasy basketball purposes. Now, they are still without Jericho Sims, so I'm not exactly sure how long he is out for. So at the moment, they're rolling with Taj Gibson as basically their backup. He played 13 minutes. So between he and Hartenstein, they combined for the 43 minutes at the center, which meant that they ran Julius Randle for 5 minutes at center. And at least while it's Taj Gibson as the backup center, I actually do think this helps a player like Josh Hart, who outside of an ejection game, which was 2 games ago, he's been playing very high minutes. Sometimes it hasn't resulted in much, but what has been more consistent is his minutes are close to that 30 per game, which for Josh Hart, historically, that is enough for him to have value. He had a great game here, 10 points, 13 rebounds, 3 assists. He had 2 threes, perfect from the free throw line, and a steal in this one. I think that you could do worse than adding Josh Hart for now, at least while, weirdly enough, Jericho Sims is out. He's got a sprained right ankle is the injury. So I don't think it's going to be super long term, but it might be a week or 2 here that he is out. And I don't think they're going to be running 48 minutes between Gibson and Hartenstein. Randall will move up to the center for 5 minutes, and that might afford Hart that extra sort of 3 to 4 minutes he needs to get up closer to 30 per game and be at least useful in fantasy basketball. It's not for everyone. It's more for those punt points teams. But I do think that this helps Hart a little bit. When Sims comes back and they do feel more comfortable going with 48 minutes at center with him, then I do think that it basically pushes Hart back to where he was. So roundabout way to say that I think Josh Hart could be a speculative add if you don't mind a low-scoring player. Emmanuel quickly, he had 23 minutes, 19 points, 4 threes. He's just going to keep doing what he's doing. He's back end, and it's hard to predict the minutes between he, DiVincenzo, Grimes, and who was the other one? I swear there's one more. No, maybe it was just those guys. And Hart, really. So, yeah, he's a streamer, probably more so than anything. I thought he might have been a guy we'd hold and he'd carry over last year's form, but I don't think so anymore. Jalen Brunson, 16, 7, and 8. Solid. Inefficient from the field, but otherwise pretty solid. 1 steal is okay. We don't expect a lot from him. DiVincenzo, he was efficient, hit 5 threes and had 3 steals. Great. He is a bit all over the place, but if you don't mind riding a roller coaster, he can be a guy you have in 12-team category leagues at the moment just for the threes and steals, but it can be a roller coaster ride, highs and lows there, and if his shot's not falling or he's not getting many shots, it's not providing you too much value. And Julius Randle was pretty much Julius Randle here, except with efficient free throw shooting, which is always a nice surprise. Let's go over to the Brooklyn Nets. Mikal Bridges, he nearly made the buy low show earlier this week, but I was well down on Bridges in the preseason. I did have him as a bust at the start of the year, and it's even been worse than I predicted. So do I think it's going to get better than this? Yeah, maybe a little bit, but not by much. I mean, 4 of 21. So he had the most shot attempts on the team. He's not going to be that bad. So the percentages is going to improve. And if he's more like, 9 of 21, that then turns into, what would that be? That'd be close to 25 points, 5 and 2 with 2 steals. And that's pretty good. That's what we want from him. And I think that's still basically a top 50, top 40 player. But not a top 20, not a top 25 or 30. I do still think that he was overdrafted, very much so, because he's durable and because he had a small sample size ranking when he got traded. The number one lesson I'm learning, and I've learned this, and I'll try to communicate this a bit more in the future, rankings in a small sample size is not useful. Stats in a small sample size can be, and and this is what I did with players like Jalen Williams, who was a big, ranked inside the top 40 in the last 3 months. Mikal Bridges ranked inside the top 25 the last 3 months. But even when you copied and pasted their averages from that time into the projections overall for this entire season, their ranking dropped back like 20 or 30 spots just because a lot of guys at the back end of the year had some weird averages in that smaller time and they overtook them when I expect them to bounce back. So I would ignore rankings in small sample sizes. What I would not ignore is production. So that can be useful, I believe, but I think we throw out the rankings when it comes to, rankings in the last 2 months, rankings after the All-Star break or whatever that is. We just look at the production. And I've heard this somewhere, I can't remember who said it, but, fantasy points is probably a better indication of their value compared to rank, because that is just a pure hard and fast number that doesn't have anything to do with the rest of the league and what they're doing. It's just their own production. So that's a better indicator of, okay, what can they do and combine that back into the rest of your expectations for the league. That's a long ramble, but I do think that that's a lesson that I've learned, and I'm going to continue to preach probably next year as well, that ignore the rankings in small sample sizes. What else can we learn from this? Cam Johnson, 20 points, 4 threes, no steals, but he is, I think, underrated. He's had a downish season, but I still think he could be better, so I've had him at a buy low show, and I still think he probably is a bit of a buy low. Spencer Dinwiddie was awful in this one. He had 3 of 11 shooting, 10 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists. If he's not getting assists, it's not great, but I think you can still keep holding on to him. And let's talk about Cam Thomas. He was good, Cam Thomas. 8 of 18, so not super efficient, but the good thing is he is still getting his usage. 4 threes, 5 assists, which is nice to see from him. Didn't get to the free throw line much and misses only 1, which does suck. Normally that's a good part of his value. But he obviously is not going to do what he did to start the season. But I still think he's a guy that we obviously have on our fantasy rosters. But hopefully by now we understand more or less what Cam Thomas is and not the, he's a bucket, he's a baller kind of Cam Thomas hype where everyone, is saying that he's going to be an all-star and all this sort of stuff, because that I think is obviously not the case. Atlanta Hawks versus the Houston Rockets. High-scoring game in this one. Trae Young, 30 points, 14 assists, had 5 threes and a steal. Poor from the free throw. Missed 2 free throws, which is unlike him, but that's a great game. And let's check the centers here, because Onyeka Okongwu outplayed Clint Capella in this one and earned the minutes over Clint Capella. Now, Capella did have the 3 fouls, but it was more at the end of the game, so I don't think the fouls was the limiting factor here. They just lent on Okongwu more. He played 32 minutes compared to Capella's 21. They crossed over for about 3 minutes in the second, or the first and second quarter, I think, so not much at all. They just went with Okongwu and played with him at the center. So I think absolutely, if he's, for whatever reason, on your waiver wire in a category you go and add, and you might even want to add him in like a 14-team points league or a back-end 12-team just to see how things go. He's not going to have the upside in a points league, but this is a solid game. 19 points, 11 rebounds, and 2 assists for 34 fantasy points. That's pretty solid. I think he's not super high upside, but he can still be solid enough. DeJounte Murray, he had a decent game. 21, 3, and 5 with a block, 3 threes. And DeAndre Hunter, 11, 1, and 3, and 0 else, 50% from the field. But yeah, he just sucks. And again, he's fine, but you can probably do better by streaming his position. Sadiq Bey, 9 and 9 with nothing else as well. Similar story. You don't need to have him. He's okay because, like we talked about Jaden McDaniels, 31 minutes, established role. That's all great, but it's just not very exciting. And I'd rather be hunting for potential league winners on your waiver wire. Bogdan Bogdanovic is a different story, though. I think he is a must-roster player. 22 points, 4 rebounds, 5 assists, a steal, and a block. 4 threes, perfect from the free throw line, and 8 from 14 from the field. Great game from him. No turnovers. Actually, awesome game. Love it. And he played 29 minutes. He is cooking right now. He's had a great season, actually. Probably needs more credit to go his way. On the Houston Rockets side, big game here from Jabari Smith. My guy, Jabari Smith. I was leading the Jabari Smith bandwagon last year, and probably wrongfully so, but he's showing that I'm not a complete idiot because he's improved recently, and 14 of 14 from the free throw line. You absolutely love it, the fact that he's aggressive and getting to the free throw line. He had 4 threes, 4 blocks. The 13 rebounds is awesome. 41 minutes is awesome. He's a good player, and pre-draft I had him ahead of Paolo Banchero. Probably looks stupid still, but maybe a little bit. I don't know. I think he could be really good, and I like what I'm seeing recently from Jabari Smith. Obviously, if he's available, you definitely go ahead and add him because I think he can continue to improve. Alperen Şengün, only the 26 minutes. They've been limiting his minutes a little bit recently. Something to monitor. You don't really have to do anything about it, but if you do get a top 30 player in a trade offer, I think I'd take it. Top 35 probably as well. The free throws mean that his ranking doesn't look as good as he probably has been, and he definitely suits a punt threes or a punt free throw team better than any regular or roto team. But yeah, I think it's a little bit concerning that the minutes more recently have been down a bit more. Jalen Green, 16-4, 2 assists, a steal and a block. I wouldn't get too excited about that. He's close to droppable, but in most cases I probably would be holding. And Dylan Brooks, 19 points. He played 29 minutes, 2 steals, 5 threes, efficient. We'll take an efficient Dylan Brooks any day of the week. I don't think we need to fall for it and grab him. And Freddie VanVleet is cooking right now. 15 assists. He's just playing so many minutes. 44 minutes in this game. And maybe it wasn't Nick Nurse. Maybe it was Fred VanVleet that is just a psycho and hates his own knees and just loves to just play basketball without stopping. So from his per-game fantasy point of view, it's great. Hopefully he doesn't get injured later in the season. And just quick little thing. I want to see Amen Thompson play more minutes. I know he's been sick and things. 8 minutes in this one. He needs to play more minutes. This guy, I think, is going to be a superstar, at least for a fantasy point of view. I think he's going to be a really good player in the NBA. It's hard to see it happening this season at all, but I want to see him at least play double this. Probably closer to 20, 24 minutes I think he needs to play because I do think he's going to be a very valuable player for them. So, Houston Rockets, if you're listening, play Amen more. All right, let's go on to LA Lakers versus the Chicago Bulls. The Bulls pull one out and beat the Lakers 124-108. Not a whole bunch going on here. What we do need to watch is D'Angelo Russell, though. He had 27 minutes in this game, but was horrible. 2 points, 1 rebound, 2 assists, and nothing else. Very, very bad game. Now, I don't think I'm dropping yet, but I'm definitely watching it because in this game also, and it wasn't even him that affected him, but Gabe Vincent did come back. He only played the 13 minutes. And prior to this, he was being lowered down in minutes anyway. They were going more Reeves. They're going with some bigger players as well. And now you throw Gabe Vincent back into the mix, there's a reason to be a little bit concerned with D'Angelo Russell. So if I could get a top 100 player back for D'Lo, I probably would take it because there's a bit of concern here. I don't know if you're going to get that, but if someone offered it to you, I would take it. So just keep an eye on that here. Cam Reddish had the 2 steals. He is good for a steal streamer. Also had 3 threes. That's solid. But really, these guys are all just crap. It's Austin Reeves, it's LeBron James, it's Anthony Davis, and the rest I don't think are regular rotation or regular locks on your fantasy basketball team. They're all, the rest just streamers, I think. And we just watched D'Angelo Russell. In 10-team leagues, you could probably drop him, to be honest. In 10-team leagues, you might be better moving on from him. 12s, I'd probably wait still a little bit longer and let him prove it a bit more, have it go over a bit longer. On the Bulls side, back-to-back healthy games from Alex Caruso. Touch wood. Here we go. They've got a back-to-back again tomorrow, so we'll see if he's healthy. No steals in this game, but he had a block, 15 points, and is efficient, 3 threes. Love it. He's a great player. He's probably one of the best players on this Bulls team. Let's just hope to God, cross our fingers that he stays healthy. Patrick Williams, he's solid enough at the moment, 15, 3, and 2 with a steal and a block. He can do that. The steal and a block is kind of a lot of his value, and if he shoots well, he can be solid. Vucevic, he's been better with obviously no Levine. The usage is up higher. And that's fine, but the efficiency has clearly dropped away, and I don't think that's coming back, really. 13 and 10, 2 assists, a steal and a block, 3 threes is nice, but I stand by everything I said in the preseason that he was going way too high, and even when they adjusted it back, I still have a bit lower. So I stand by that. How about Kobe White, though? He might end up being one of the picks of the season. 17, 7, and 5, and I don't really think it's going to slow down too much. He is absolutely cooking right now, and looks like the player they're going to build around, really, moving forward, if they ever trade and blow it up. And I saw, what did I see the other day? They were looking for someone, they're looking to trade for someone to help make them a better team, or who was it? I can't even remember who. They named someone, and it was just stupid. And if the Chicago Bulls are actually fooling themselves that they're still trying to compete to get into the playoffs, I swear to God, that is just the most frustrating thing that I've seen if I was a Bulls fan. DeRozan had a good game here, 27, 7, and 9. He had a few poor games, so this is a welcome sight if you have him. If you have him and this game comes up and you get a good offer or you can sell him, I'd probably try and look to do it because he was trending down, but super efficient from the field, hit 3 of 3 free throws, stealing a block, 7 and 9 rebounds and assists. That's a great game. If you can execute a sell high, and by sell high, I mean like a top 50, top 60 player, I'd probably take it. Definitely top 50, I would take it. Top 60, if it helped me in the areas I need, I probably would as well. So I don't know if you're about to do that because there were quite a few bad games before this, but yeah, I'd at least explore it if it's possible. And then, yeah, just a whole bunch of nothing for us to talk about on the rest of the roster. Let's go to the other LA team in the Clippers versus the Dallas Mavericks. The Clippers are on a roll, and Kawhi Leonard is on a friggin' roll. He is playing out of his mind right now. I said he was a sell high, I think, last sell high show, and he's been better, absolutely way better since then. But I still maintain that he is a sell high. He is cruising at like top 10 value over the last couple of weeks. And if I can get a first round or even a top 15 player for Kawhi Leonard, I do it. He, I believe, has still played every game of the season so far. And but in that time, Paul George has been kind of in and out as well. He didn't play in this game. And I think as good as a player as Kawhi Leonard is, the efficiency will fall off a little bit more from him. And his minutes are sky high right now. I know everyone else in your league is also probably wary of his injury history in the past, but I think, again, you've got to at least try and see if it is possible to execute a sell high on him for a top 15 player. I would take it. If you can't get a top 15 player, then I would just enjoy it and just hope, cross your fingers that, Alex Caruso style, that he doesn't get hurt or he's not sitting too many back-to-backs down the stretch of the fantasy playoffs. James Harden had been cooking a little bit more down in this one here, but still 17, 5, and 11. He had 2 threes, 7 of 8 from the free throw line. I think I'm more expecting this James Harden than what he'd been doing recently, but maybe it's somewhere in the middle. Maybe he can be a second-round guy for the rest of the season. I still would think he's more 20 to 30 kind of a range player in -1 rankings, but he has definitely been really good more recently. The rest of this team, Norm Powell played well with 31 minutes with Paul George. He's a decent stream when it comes to threes and points, especially when any of those three players are out, Harden, Kawhi, and PG. And PG was obviously out in this one. Westbrook is not. His minutes are not going up even if one of those guys are gone. He's going to need multiple of them to be out, and probably more specifically James Harden for him to have value. Solid enough game here, but just noticing that the minutes haven't gone higher than 23 or 24 basically since he's moved to the bench, means that he's a clear drop in all category leagues and probably shallow points leagues as well. 22 points. It's just not, you can probably stream that position in 10 and 12 team points leagues. On the Mavericks, Doncic was good-ish from the counting stats, murdered your field goal and your free throw. In this one, had 5 turnovers and 1 steal, no blocks. So solid enough, but also not very good as well. 28, 10, and 10 is obviously great, but the percentages definitely did hurt you in this one. Derek Jones Jr. has been great. He had 38 minutes in this game, 19, 3, and 2 with a steal and 2 blocks. Efficient, hit 2 threes, 5 5 from the free throw line. Great. Keep streaming him in. When Kyrie Irving comes back, his value will drop, but I wouldn't drop him straight away. Just see how things go. Dante Exum is still going out strong in 40 minutes in this one. His value is obviously cooled off a little bit here, but he's still fine to hold at least until some of those guys do come back. And we still don't have Derek Lively, who's got no timetable to return. Remember, that just means they're not going to say. They're either keeping it a secret and being super sneaky, or they just don't know. It's a rolled ankle. I don't think it's going to be super long. I would expect he's probably at least back by their Christmas Day game, is my guesstimate, prediction, I would say at this stage. So I don't think it's going to be super long term, and a lot of people freak out when they see no timetable to return or out indefinitely. It just means they don't know or they don't want to tell you, which is kind of shit, but that's basically what it is. Tim Hardaway Jr., still must-roster player, I think, especially, if you're looking for threes and points. Had 3 steals in this one, which you take that and run any day of the week. Don't need to have Grant Williams, don't need to have Dwight Powell, don't need to have any of their other bench players. It's just Tim Hardaway. All right, and let's go on to that last game, which is finished now with my Celtics coming through and dominating this one. That was a big win for them, even without Jason Tatum, who was out with his ankle injury. I don't think he's going to be out super long, at least I hope. Again, maybe that Christmas Day game, he is back by then. That's usually a big game that players like to play, so he might be resting up until then. But bloody Derek White, who is emerging as one of my favorite Celtics at the moment, and he's just killing it. 3 blocks. He is just dominating blocks recently. He's a good shot blocking guard, but he has taken it to a new level recently. And I kind of wait for it to fall off, but it's just not fallen off just yet. So he has been an excellent, excellent pick. A little bit of a sell high, yeah, but he's also just going to smash his ADP as well, which is really cool if you drafted him. Jaylen Brown, 28, 5, and 6. No defensive stats. He is... People ask me all the time, is he a buy low? And I sort of say, look, in your scoring system, if it's a points league, what he's been doing this season, for as terms of an average, is what I expect. I don't think he's underdoing it, overdoing it. This is fine. He's obviously going to be better when there's no Tatum. But I just think that what he's been doing this season is exactly what I expected and what I expect to continue. So do with that what you will. Kristaps Porzingis looked like he got hurt a little bit at one point, but still played it out. It had 6 blocks, 24 points, 9 rebounds, 2 assists, and 3 threes. Great game from him. And a great game and a welcome sight for Drew Holiday owners who 21 points, 8 rebounds, and 10 assists with 2 steals and a block. The assists and steals are really what we love to see here because those have been down. He also was super efficient with 4 threes and perfect from the free throw line. Awesome game from a lot of these Celtics, obviously, which is why they cruise to the victory. And Peyton Pritchard, who was a stream for me in one of the leagues that I'm in a 14-team league. 20 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists in 29 minutes. He had a steal, had 6 threes. They were calling him... what were they calling him? Pacific P. Yeah, Pacific P on the broadcast, which I did enjoy. He obviously you're not expecting this, but when those Tatum or Brown or someone like that is out, he can step up into a high usage role, and he obviously hit a lot of his shots in this game. So on the back-to-backs, which they played last night and tonight, he is a guy that we can look to stream for threes and points. Moving forward, especially if there are a player or two out. And that's pretty much it. For deep leagues, Namus Keita, I actually really like what I see from him, just from a Celtics fan point of view in me. I love what I see from him. I prefer him over a Luke Cornett. I wish they'd play him over him. I think he's got a bit of potential, and he's an excellent per-minute rebounder. Just out of this world per-minute rebounder. 18 minutes, 8 rebounds, and a steal in this one. Not someone that needs to trouble standard leagues, and maybe not even 14 or 16-team leagues. But if you're in a 20 or 30-team league, he needs to be absolutely on your radar if he isn't already. For the Kings, obviously, they got blown out a little bit. I don't think their starters played in the third quarter because these minutes look very similar to what I saw when I was checking the stats at three-quarter time. But Fox came out on fire from 3 from this game, but after that first quarter and a bit, really slowed down. But 29, 3, and 3 with 3 steals is still obviously really good. 13 and 10 and 8 for Sabonis with a block. It's okay, but obviously 26 minutes. These guys are just all down at the moment. And Keegan Murray cooled off a little bit. He'd been on fire, and you might still be able to execute a sell high on him and blame the blowout nature to this one. I think he's a solid top 90-ish guy, but I don't think he's going to be a top 75, top 70 guy moving forward. And if you can get someone like that for Keegan Murray after his explosion the last couple of games, I definitely think I would explore that. And there are a lot of passionate Kings fans out there that you might be able to execute it moving forward. But yeah, not really too much else to discuss on this one. I still think Malik Monk is someone that we want to hold on to. 10, 2, and 5 with a perfect 4 from 4 from the free throw line. Missed all his threes, so not a great line, but I still think you hold on to him. Herder, you don't have to. He only played 16 minutes, so even in the blowout, much lower than everyone else. So he and Harrison Barnes are not must rosters. I would definitely rather Malik Monk in most situations. That will do it for us today, guys. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed this podcast, please give it a big thumbs up and make sure you are subscribed over on YouTube. Give us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcast, and follow me on Twitter at BallBoysFantasy, and I will see you next show for the Sell High, guys. Until then, bye.